A thug has been jailed for taking part in a grotesque 12-hour campaign of torture against a drug dealer who they kidnapped, assaulted and sexually humiliated. After being snatched from the street, the victim was tied up, beaten, repeatedly had boiling water poured onto his genitals, and had what he was told was rat poison forced down his throat, as they demanded a six-figure cash sum. The thug, who inflicted the majority of the violence on the victim, 29-year-old Anthony Richardson, was jailed for his role in what the judge said was a grotesque torture. The attack began when the victim, a married father, was snatched from the street near his home in Blackley at 7:30 p.m. on November the 12th, 2019. He was bundled into a car and taken to a nearby house of a drug addict mother, where he was tortured for the next 12 hours by a gang of at least 8 men. Alexandra Sutton, prosecuting, told Manchester Crown Court on Tuesday, at this house he was imprisoned and assaulted over a number of hours. Demands were made that unless he handed over a six-figure quantity of cash, he would be gravely injured, if not killed. The victim was assaulted in the kitchen and living room. He was punched in the face, dragged around the rooms, downstairs, kicked, stamped on, struck with a chair, and had his head struck against the wall. He was tied to a chair in the kitchen. His hands were bound with a cord from a set of clippers. His feet were bound with a rope, and a jumper wrapped round his neck. His face was covered with a sheet. The violence continued when he was tied up. The victim was carried into the living room. He was instructed not to look at anybody. He repeated that he had no money to give them. This was met with more beatings. When the victim told them he didn't have the money, his captors unleashed extreme and sometimes cruel and degrading violence, said the prosecutor. The gang produced a needle and threatened to inject him with heroin. Later they pulled down his trousers, and Richardson sexually humiliated the man. The gang boiled a kettle in front of their victim, and then when he still insisted he didn't have the money, and Richardson and another gang member poured the water onto his torso and genitals, the court was told. The gang stuffed a sock into their victim's mouth and taped it shut. He feared he was going to suffocate. In desperation, he lashed out until one of the offender acted on the danger and cut away the tape, said Miss Alexandra. The prosecutor went on. The victim was forced to swallow tablets. He was told that they contained rat poison, and in 2 doses, quantities of tablets were forced in his mouth, followed by water to force them down his throat. The victim thought he was drowning. It was only later toxicology tests revealed the pills were an antidepressant rather than rat poison. Another of his captors, Llewllyn Campbell, who appeared to be the gang's leader, removed his mask, and the court heard told the victim, "You know I'm not playing about, mate. You know I'm not messing. You know you better get me some money or you're going to be severely hurt and you won't be going back to your wife and kids the same." The man was led upstairs and locked in a wardrobe. The court heard he was so distressed he urinated. After he'd been held captive for 12 hours, the man managed to bite through his bindings, forced open the wardrobe, and ran out of the house, pursued by one of his captors, who chased him with a hammer as he begged for help from passers-by. The victim suffered a number of injuries in the onslaught, including burns, but none of them were serious. The court heard that the victim declined to provide a victim personal statement for the sentencing hearing, but in his police interview he said his kidnapping had been an absolute nightmare. He reported that he suffered sleepless nights, often woke up sweating, and suffered from anxiety, depression, and sometimes felt suicidal. "It's mentally broke me down," he told officers. Richardson had convictions from his youth for assault, robbery, and possessing a knife, but since 2014, his only court appearance were for motoring offences. Andrew Alty, defendant, pointed to a report by the probation service which noticed his client was genuinely sorry for what he had done and that he wanted to address his offending behaviour while behind bars. The barrister said his client had already served 938 days on remand awaiting sentence and that he had entered his guilty pleas 14 months ago. Judge Elizabeth Nichols told Richardson his victim had suffered violent and humiliating treatment, most of it inflicted by the defendant and the second member of the gang, Richardson, and that it had a profound effect on him. You were present and participated in most of it, if not all of the acts of violence, said the judge, adding, however, that she accepted he had shown genuine remorse. She characterised the campaign of torture as quite grotesque, offending. Richardson of Anthony Close in Gorton pleaded guilty to kidnap and false imprisonment on the basis that although he took part in the violence, there was no actual injury or no intention to cause serious harm. He was jailed for 13.5 years and told he must serve 2/3 of the sentence before he can be released on licence. Last month, Campbell, 26, of Davil Road in Harperhay, was jailed for 15 years for his part in the torture. He pleaded guilty to kidnap and was found guilty of false imprisonment following a trial. He was on bail for serious drugs offences at the time of the kidnapping. Another member of the gang, John Robertson, 23, of Waterson Avenue in Moston, was jailed for 18 months. He pleaded guilty to assisting an offender. Richardson, 29, of Lord Street in Stockport, is to be sentenced at a later date. He has pleaded guilty to kidnap and false imprisonment. Kai East, 22, of Taves Road in Cheadle, Hulme, was due to be sentenced for assisting an offender but did not appear in court on Tuesday. Please like, share and comment and subscribe. Thank you.